Hello, my name is James Callahan, and today we're going to be talking about collecting wire data at household speeds. This is going to be a quick talk about how I've deployed a couple of different Netflow collectors. I've got 4 running right now in my home environment. We're going to talk about how my lab is set up a little bit and what I do with the data afterwards. If you've looked at the abstract, you'll see that I'm a heavy user of Splunk, although I don't work for them. Just a real quick disclaimer, you can take a minute and read that. I took a minute to write it, so it's actually, the bottom line is, it's all about this guy. So when you remember everything, I'm not representing my company, I'm not representing any of their client agencies or organizations or companies that we work for. I'm talking about stuff that I'm doing on my own because, well, heck, I've got a hobby out of this stuff. So let's go on. And who am I? This is about me. I go by JP, which is short for James Patrick. I consider myself professional paranoid, professionalparanoid.com if you want to show up in my web logs. I'm a retired Chief Warrant Officer 4 in the field of counterintelligence, which back in the day didn't have a whole lot to do with computers. But I am a computer hobbyist. I currently make my living with it. I'm in an Irish band. I've got a solo album out, a couple of them, antiquemusic.net, again, if you want to show up in my weblogs. I have a 65 classic Mustang convertible, which I absolutely enjoy playing with when I'm not tinkering with my 7-foot server rack, which I just pointed to over there. Bottom line, I'm not looking for a job, and my motto is, if you're not having fun, you're in the wrong line of work. You can see over there on the right some of the titles I've held throughout my career. I've done a lot of stuff. The gray hair doesn't lie. I started out at the very bottom of the United States Army and worked my way up to Chief Warrant Officer 4. And I've had a good run. And I'm not done. I'm still having fun. So a little bit about my home environment. You can see there's a lot of stuff going on here. There's 2 in the center there, in those gray boxes are VM servers. One's running ESXi on a server I built. The other one is VM workstation running on a Windows platform that I bought because I was lazy and didn't want to build it. I've got, you can see down the left side there, 3 Raspberry Pis collecting Netflow. We're going to talk about how we collect Netflow with Raspberry Pis. It's really kind of fun. Well, for me anyway. You can see I've got Kali Linux running on a Raspberry Pi. I've got a variety of personal devices running in the house. There's 5 adults living in my house right now. Adult children who've gone and come back or just hanging around. Everybody's got a laptop. Everybody's got a tablet. Everybody's got a phone. They're all connected in. And, of course, I've got a lot of IoT things going on in the house. And we're going to talk later about how I baseline some of those things. My wife calls it Borging the house. If you're Star Trek and you're a fan of, I think it's Next Gen, when they talk about the Borg taking over humans, well, I have Borged the house, according to my wife, who actually likes it and enjoys it. I also run an AWS web server out there in the cloud, and I can turn on other ones if I need to. But they don't like it when you scan from there. They'll send you a little nasty note. I've learned that the hard way. I also run VPN. So how do I collect my data? You can see there I've got the firewall, and I've got a span port off the firewall, and I'm just plopping it into a hub. And the hub actually takes, that span port and multiplies it. It's not switched. I don't have to worry about setting up another switch and managing a switch and opening up span ports, etc. But the hub seems to be keeping up. It's a 10 megabit hub, but seems to be doing okay. I've got, as I mentioned earlier, I've got 4 Netflow collectors running. nfdump, which is a 4-part. I'm going to talk about each one of these individually. I'm running Bro, the Brocon logs. I look at those. Suricata has got a Netflow collection capability that we have going on there. And I'm running the native Splunk Stream App, which is incredibly robust if you've never played with it. And remember, all of my playing around with Splunk here in my house is all free. So if you go, oh, Splunk, it's so expensive. No, it's really not if if you just want to play with it. And we'll talk about how to get those free licenses towards the end. Those gauges represent Netflow collected in the same 60-minute time frame. You can see everybody's collecting something else, something a little bit different. Some of that may have to do, and we'll talk about why they're a little bit different later on. I don't want to spoil the ending. nfdump is actually comprised of 3 components. They don't all have to be on the same machine. In my case, they're all running on the same Raspberry Pi there. fprobe captures nfdcap, writes it, and then nfdump takes what's written and turns it into human readable. I have it running on a Raspberry Pi, Model B+, blah, 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 blah. You can read that there. Mine's been up and running for 7 years, which I think is really kind of cool. I also have a Splunk forwarder running on that Raspberry Pi, so it's taking all the output and shipping it off to Splunk where I do my analytics. You can see there in the blue box, not a whole lot of bells and whistles. It's lightweight. If you need to do a quick survey and assessment tool, you might be able to take a Raspberry Pi with you, with it loaded, plug it in, and pull it down. You can see that last bullet up there. I've run it on battery for 7 hours once, which I thought was kind of neat. I had a cell phone charging battery, and I thought, I wonder how long it'll run. It ran for 7 hours. In my particular case, it's not set up for real time because it's all running on the Raspberry Pi. Then I have like this harvest script that runs every 15 minutes and chips it off. What I've done for you all, because I love you so much, is I've taken the scripts and stuff that I use in a lot of these different places and some of the analytics. And at the end of the deck, once you get access to the slide deck, is a section called After Bits. And the scripts that I use are there, the things that start and stop. And actually, you can see down there at the bottom of this particular slide, you can see the command I use to start it and run it. And also at the bottom of these slides will be links where it's appropriate. I also am running Bro on a Raspberry Pi. This is getting a little long in the tooth. Time for an upgrade. I haven't done it yet, but I'm thinking hard about it. When I first set it up, I had to tweak some of the source types to reduce the volume. As I mentioned, it's running an older version now. It's running on a Pi Zero, which is kind of fun. One of those little $5 Raspberry Pi things. It's configured for JSON output. I'm going to be talking about the data formats a little bit later. And I do plan on upgrading to Zeek. I found down there is the bottom link there is how to get Zeek onto a Raspberry Pi. So we're going to give that a shot. You can see in the little blue box, the tap and the chart. The tap is actually keeping up. So that whole hub thing, I was a little worried. You can see the left graph there is actually the comparison of what and these are logarithmic scales, what I'm ingesting versus what I'm not ingesting, what is making it to the Raspberry Pi. The right-hand side of that chart is actually what the Raspberry Pi is capable of ingesting, of processing. So at the max, the Raspberry Pi was about an 8% loss. When you look at what I'm losing on the left, it's less than 1%. It's a very, very low number of packets that aren't making it to the Raspberry Pi. And the thing with Pro, as always, if you've had any of the FlowCon training in years past, there's lots of things you can do with Pro, lots of different source types. Suricata I'm running. Netflow wasn't on by default. You can see that in the blue box. And I had originally installed it because I wanted to play with the NIDS, network intrusion detection. And it's built, I'm running it on a Raspberry Pi, which one there? On a Model B2 with 1 GB of RAM. And mine came bundled in something called Brer IDS. And this intrusion detection system is a bundle of stuff that includes Bro, by the way, and I guess now Zeek. And it just monitors and keeps things up. It does a lot of other stuff, Brer IDS, and it does the Alien Vault Intel feeds. It supports hashing of files, things like that. I'm primarily using it as IDS. I've played with the Netflow. I just actually recently turned it on just when I was writing this talk to see what was there. And there's different configurations you can do. Down at the bottom is the link for that. So Splunk is the main one that I use the most. It's free. You don't have to pay for, Splunk Stream App. If you're already a Splunk customer, it comes free. If you're using Splunk for free, it's free. If you download the free version of Splunk and you want to play with Stream App, you can do that. You can also deploy it out on forwarders if you're familiar with this and have all the processing happening out there. the data reduction out on a forwarder, have it sent back to your primary indexer. It's really great. Now this one's not on a Raspberry Pi. Actually, my Splunk environment. Actually, I'm running 2 Splunk environments. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. Mine is actually running the indexer, the search head, and the Stream App all on the same VM. And this is running on my my ESXi VM because it has SSD card hard drive, and it's much faster. So you can see there, I've allocated 300 gigabytes on my SSD for this, and it's doing really well. You can see that the illustration down there. If I look down, that's because that's where I'm looking. It does a lot. You can set things up to estimate. Like I have ARP set up right now to estimate the amount of ARP I'm getting, and you can look for trends. You can actually get the full, like DHCP. I'm getting the full DHCP logs. It does a lot of the data extraction. Watch your ingest. It will get fat fast if you're not careful. If you turn everything on and not use the estimate, you can really run things up. So just be aware of that. I'll talk about my license and what I have with the license, the type of license I have that I got for free in a minute. But if you have caps on your ingest, this could flood you if you're not careful. tcpdump, this one is one that I used and retired. Well, basically I was capturing full PCAP on a Raspberry Pi. And what I did was I captured it on there. I shipped the PCAP off to a second. I think it was a VM that processed the PCAP, pulled it out, ran it through tcpdump, and pumped out Netflow information. I played with ARP on there at the time. It really killed my ingest on my Splunk. And then I ran into it and something I call the cascading PCAP problem, where I was ingesting the PCAP in, and then shipping it off to another box. That shipping it off was then collected by the PCAP collector, and it just got out of hand, and you could see, oh boy, I made some mistakes there. Learned how to build PCAP filters using tcpdump. The filtering, I don't want to collect that, but that was a real moment. I also play with Yap and Silk for a little bit. Silk, which is it's from Carnegie Mellon. I play with it, but it's for me it was not intuitive or necessary to use in my environment. It's optimized for extremely large data collections. Huge data sets. It's very compact format for storing it. And the one I played with was all command line interface. And there were like 80 different commands, actually 80 plus different CLI commands, as I was going through the documentation trying to figure this out. There might be some SEI folks cringing right now, but I found it a little bit troublesome to use in my environment. You really had to know, to be good at it, you really had to know what those commands were and how to implement them. I had a friend who described a different tool once that says you don't you don't date that tool, you have to marry it, and that's the way I kind of feel about Silk. If you want to get good at it, you can't dabble in it, you have to marry the daggum thing. Which is, if you have a use case for this, take it around the block and try it. You can see there I was running it on a VM. They've got a live DVD available. The links are down there at the bottom if you want to take a look at that. So how'd they do? The 4 that I'm running right now, they all captured slightly different, which I think might be related to the hardware and the configuration of these things. You could see I did the chart down at the bottom. It's it's tiny on my little screen. On the big screen, you could see, for example, the .24 IP got picked up in Netflow, but it wasn't picked up anywhere else. The .140 IP was picked up by Bro, but it wasn't picked up by the others. So you can see, they all do a little bit different. They all count the different bytes slightly different. That could be related to some of the various protocols. The Netflow is pretty much only picking up, it might be picking up some, it's picking up TCP and UDP, so you would figure if it's being seen in Netflow, it should have been seen in the others as well. So they're all a little bit different. So the metrics, not all the collectors are equal. I just talked a lot about this. You can see that different hardware platforms may cause this. Different data formats and granularity. Some of them might be collecting different protocols as well. You can see those are the raw events in a 60-minute period. The same 60-minute period between each. Stream App collects a lot of different raw events, whereas nfdump is only collecting flat Netflow events. Let's see. All right. So what the format? Speaking of which, there's a lot of different. There's each one writes it in its own way. This is out of Splunk. You could see that, and this was all the exact same connection. So I took a period. I went to Google on my laptop and said, all right, now Brocon, Netflow, Stream App, show me what you captured related to that. You can see they're a lot different. Brocon, Suricata, and Splunk are all in JSON format, whereas the Netflow is all straight raw. I have it set up for bidirectional with the nfdump Netflow. You can actually set it up so that they're each individual. You can see there that lots of different data is parsed out of the flows. With Stream App, it actually pulls the SSL information out in the particular TCP format source type, whereas in Suricata it'll be in a separate source type. But these were the raw ones, and you can take time later to take a look at this and pick which one might be right for you, or as I say, try them all. UDP was a little bit different. I have at one of the tests, I have a weather station hanging out on a pole in the backyard, and it is talks to a hub via Bluetooth LE, and then the hub is constantly broadcasting UDP. When I say constantly, I'm talking constantly. It's 3 packets, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3. It's constant. And so with UDP, there's no end of flow marker to say, hey, all right, time to write it. And what I found was each one, well, first off, couldn't find it in Bro at all. It never got to the point where Bro could write it. There's a configuration setting in Bro that says, after so many packets or after so much time, write your UDP. I couldn't get that to work. Could be my trying it. I might have missed something. But with the Stream App, I was getting it at 44 minutes, would rotate over. Suricata, that's all like a day and a half. I suddenly got a huge packet, and that my guess is, and that wasn't constant. My guess is something happened on my network that caused a slight pause in that, in that rhythm that it said, all right, time to write. With nfdump, it was kind of nice because it was set to 15-minute intervals, and those might be the 15 minutes where I'm breaking in that script, breaking to write and then starting it over again. But UDP, no end of flow marker. If you have a very, very busy syslog server and you're missing logs somehow, and go in there and check to make sure that everything is actually getting written. You can do some time gap analysis and stuff like that. So what do I do with all the data? You can see, I keep an eye on things, yada, 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 inventory things. Inventory is still pretty hard for me. How do you do the inventory? I combine, compare, but you got to put it somewhere. Data, that's me when somebody hands me new data to look at. Let's see, Splunk. People love it. People hate it. Most of the time when I hear people talking about Splunk and why they don't like it, they say, oh, it's so expensive. They're changing their pricing models. But I don't work for them. I'm not on commission. I have dabbled with the Elk stack, but I had trouble getting it to work. Splunk's got a wonderful community that will support you and help you get through what you need to get through. There's Splunk answers. You can post questions to get stuff. I know Elk now has something like that, but it's to me, I just couldn't play with. It wasn't intuitive. I couldn't figure out how to get data in and where it was going. But again, I may not have played with it hard enough or too much. So the free Splunk license. Let's talk about how it. If you're familiar with the old 60-day expires thing, first off, I found a way around that a while back. But then they changed the rules. So now you get 500 megabits a day of indexing with no expiration date. And you can see there, you don't even have to ask for it, but you don't get the full experience. I am running one of these. I had mentioned that I have 2 Splunks running. This one is actually, for me, is feeding. I have a magic mirror that presents the weather from that weather station, and I didn't want it going into my regular Splunk because it's running in kiosk mode, and in kiosk mode you have to roll back some of the security protocols, and blah 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 blah. I have 2 Splunks. This one and then one that I have on the next license that we're going to talk about. But you only get one account. You can't do role-based access. You can't do forwarding. It's disabled. But if you just want to dabble with Splunk a little bit, 500 megabits a day is pretty good. With my weather station, I'm not getting anywhere near that. You don't get alerting and monitoring, and I do have that on my other one. I started with this, as I mentioned before, and I found a way around it by preserving the comp files inside Splunk opt the Splunk directory. There are configuration files. If I could preserve those, then reinstall it, I was okay. This is what I am actually using. I'm using the developer license. I've been doing it for a long time. It's for, you can see the reasons there. They've recently come out with something called the developer test license that takes the 10 gigabit limit and ups it to 50 gig per day. The thing about these, they're fully functional. The thing about these is they are for individuals, not organizations. So they do allow you, if you're at work, to download and run this at your office and use your work data in there, but you own the license, not your organization. And every 6 months, you've got to go get it again. I am running the developer license in my house with the 10 gig. I'm pulling in at the high end, 4 gigs a day. So I didn't feel the need to move to a developer test. But again, it's free. You don't have to, you can use the Stream app. You can everything that comes with Splunk, you can put into these things. You can have role-based access. I let folks from work periodically log into my Splunk if I've done something and I want to show how I did it. They're allowed to do that. Down at the bottom is the links for the developer license. There's also the Splunk Cloud Trial. I've not messed with this much, but you can do that. There's 5 gigs a day, 15-day duration. There's also, why is that new move? If you just want to real quick play with something, there's a fourth option where it's kind of hidden behind a training video where you can get to a Splunk instance, and you can see the details are up there, how to get there from here kind of deal. But you can't add new data. But if you just want to try a query, if you're familiar with Splunk, you can do a pipe make results and play with manipulating stuff. This is a friend of mine at work showed me how to get there from here, and I thought I would just include that in here. So use cases, inventory. Inventory for me is a little bit hard because I not only want to know what I have, but what is it used for. So trying to get and I have a lot of static IPs. I have a segment for my IoT. But when a MAC address comes in and says my simple link, and it's some random thing, what that host is, trying to figure out what it is. I've got a lot of different things in my house. I've got the Wemo plugs, running the Christmas tree. I've got, light switches. I've got all sorts of stuff, and identifying them on my network sometimes is a little bit difficult, in a persistent way. And then I want to classify them. What is it? It's IoT, it's IoT lights, it's IoT security camera. I want to be able to categorize them so that as I'm doing analysis of things, well, show me any changes on IoT devices. I want to be able to do that, and getting those labeled and everything is sometimes a little bit, in a repeatable process, for me, has been a little bit difficult. So MAC addresses, you can see what I've done up there. The picture there is of the Splunk Asset Discovery app. It will run an Nmap at your pace of your network, and it will ingest the results into Splunk. Again, it's all free. Let's see. Baselining IoT. So this is the chart down there is actually a brand new printer, baby printer's first talk on my network. And what I did was I captured that, and that's one of my my dashboards that I built, the analytics outbound review. You can see that Epson is talking, and that was a 24-hour period. Those are the connections that it made when I turned it on. And I appreciate that. So basically, I'm doing frequency analysis. I'm doing some odd connections. In this case, flow data is key to making this work. This was another one that was brand new device on my network. I got a new e-reader from Barnes & Noble, and it's way too chatty for me. Why on earth is my e-reader without a browser going to Facebook? I don't appreciate that at all. So, but I now have it baselined. When I turned it on, you can see that flat line up to the point where I turned it on, and it's doing all those things. So if something else ever shows up, I'll be able to tell. And this was, a new Raspberry Pi 4. Again, baseline, you can see when it turned on. I fired up VNC because I needed to be able to get to it, and you can see the connections there for the Raspberry Pi 4. You can see there's actually two different Raspberry Pis. Oh, it has two different, the way this analytic is set up, it combines them by top level domain. So, anyway, or second level. So anyway, that's my talk I had, but if you have any questions or concerns, I think I'm going to be in a chat for follow-up questions, and then later we're going to have a special room if you want to come in, and I might do a live demo depending upon how things are working out. So, and then afterwards, if you want, these are those afterbit slides, like for example the nfdump scripts, how I do the different stuff. So, so hopefully you enjoyed the talk, and thank you. Bye bye.
We have James with us now. Welcome, James.
Hey, hi, how are you?
Well, thank you. We are limited on time for your Q&A, so we're going to dive right in. First one for James from Zoom asking, do you have a separate VLAN for Netflow collection?
No, my edge device, my router, I have not configured it for VLANs yet. It's something I want to do. I also need to migrate my IoT to a separate VLAN as well, but it's on the roadmap.
Next from Joe in Discord asking, have you played around with any flow-based tools? These really shine in switching fabric.
The S-Flow tool, I think, I have not yet played with that yet. I've been looking at it, but when the question came up in Discord, I immediately started Googling, ooh, look, another thing to play with. But I definitely will take a look, see if I can get that on a Raspberry Pi too.
And so we got a number of questions in Discord, and I believe you're going there after there, so you can follow up on the ones that we don't get to. But the last one in the time frame we have here, James, is how much east-west traffic do you have within your household, entertainment traffic, etc.?
I haven't really measured it. Most of the personal devices that we have that are streaming are generally going out of the house to get their content from Netflix or Hulu or things like that. Within the house, I have my syslog that is east-west, but that never leaves the VM server. So a lot of that I don't get to see. It never crosses my tab. But it's something that I can take a look at it at some point.
James, thank you very much for participating in FlowCon. Sorry for short on time, but we do appreciate you sharing your expertise.
Thank you. You're very welcome.